But why are you called a Christian? Everyone, welcome back to another book review brought to you by our friends at Peniel Press, where good theology is good discipleship. I'm Pastor Stephen, pastor at Bethel Reformed Church in Brantford, Ontario. Today we are looking at But Why Are You Called a Christian? An Introduction to the Heidelberg Catechism by Margit Ernst-Habib. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but as the book says in the title, it is an introduction to the Heidelberg Catechism, and it's designed as an accessible introduction, I think, for people within the church or even, introductory students in university for catechism or seminary for catechism as well. And there's a few things I really appreciate about this book. And it's probably in the top 2 to 3 of the books on the Heidelberg that I would offer to people. One of the things I really liked is that it actually includes a commentary on the catechism. So I've read some other books that will have a copy of the catechism in the back, and they'll talk through the major themes of the catechism, but don't actually go through, Lord's Day by Lord's Day. She doesn't go question by question. It's not that long of a book. It's about 150 pages, but it does actually provide a short commentary on the Heidelberg Catechism itself, which is a really helpful tool for those who are learning and studying the catechism, and being brief enough as opposed to, say, Ursinus' commentary, which is like 900 pages, or some of the others that are really in depth and big and intimidating. This is the right size for someone who's just getting started. So I really appreciated that, which was the last chapter. Chapter 4 is like 2/3 of the book. It's like 100 pages. Just going through a commentary. But the first 3 chapters kind of give you that introduction. And my favorite chapter was chapter 1, which was called Learning by Heart, Encountering the Heidelberg Catechism. It just, the language of learning by heart shows kind of the purpose and function of catechisms, that they were meant to be meditated on, meant to be memorized in some senses, so that your heart is being trained. Learning by heart is not only just like rote memorization, but it's also the training of the heart. And that's kind of the purpose of catechesis in general. And the Heidelberg Catechism is definitely part of that. Also, this is the only book I've seen that has given this exact phrasing where it talks about the purposes of the catechism and names them as, it was a catechetical textbook. So for catechesis class, this was the textbook, but it was also confessional standard. And so it wasn't just for teaching the young and the converts. It was also used as a standard for preaching for ministers who are going to be ordained to office. And it still functions that way in some Reformed denominations. It was used as a lectionary and in liturgy. So it was part of worship, whether that was the catechetical preaching, often in the Sunday evenings, but also, as responsive readings, and is part of the worship life of a church. It was also a prayer book and part of the life in the home. And this is something I've always hoped to recover through some of my own work on the catechism, but I think it's something that has often been forgotten in more recent generations about this, that what's done in worship, what's done in catechism class, what's done at the home should be aligned with one another. And that was actually part of the original purpose, to that learning by heart, that training at home and in church, and even in the educational parts of the church's life. And she says it's a guide to Christian living. And so you think particularly the gratitude section on prayer and the 10 Commandments are an opportunity to show us how are we actually supposed to live out this faith, live out our belonging to Jesus Christ. And as she should, the kind of focus starts with question answer 1. So what is your only comfort in life and in death? That I'm not my own, but belong, body and soul, in life and in death, to my faithful Savior, Jesus Christ. That's the beginning of question answer 1. And that belonging to Jesus Christ, that grace precedes the law in the Catechism, and that all of the rest of the Catechism flows out of the belonging that we have in Jesus Christ. And so, just kind of theologically, you can definitely see the Bardian influences there, but also just a clear, careful reading of the Catechism and its structure. In the second chapter, there's the sort of historical theological background of the Catechism. Much of it is covering ground that you could find in many other books. But one thing I did appreciate in this is kind of has the aftermath of the Catechism, because you're often told rightly that the Catechism was a mediating document, that you've got the Gnesio-Lutherans, you've got the Philippists, you've got the Reformed, all in the region of the Palatinate, that are in tension, and that this was created as a document that was Reformed, but also was very peaceful, very, ironic, trying to bring people together, even as it clearly states its doctrinal convictions. And I think that's true. But our question is, did it work? And historically, in the Palatinate itself, it didn't. And so even though the document, the Catechism, is beautiful and beneficial and a gift to the church, in its own context, it was not able to stem the tides of division within the Palatinate. And so I think just adding that as a historical fact is helpful, because as much as I love the Heidelberg Catechism, it can't. We can't expect it to solve everything. We can't expect it to do more than it's intended to do. And so, being able to just be clear-eyed about what are the limits of what this kind of catechetical confessional document can do, and I think that's just helpful as we're entering in, to not paint too rosy of a picture of what the Catechism accomplished, because it's accomplished a lot, but there's also things it was not able to do, and that's just reality. And then, before the whole chapter where she's going through the Catechism itself, there's a kind of strange logic of grace, the sort of structure of the Catechism, the threefold knowledge, really well done there as well. I just appreciated the brevity of the book, its tone, and it really, is something that I think you can give to someone who's needing an introduction to the Catechism. I'll say a couple things just to note about it. One is, if you're really interested in footnotes and in tracing sources, she clearly knows what she's doing and knows her sources, but there's just a stylistic thing that she'll cite the person. So say, this is said by, Karl Barth or Alan Verhey, but the style is not that there's a footnote and you can find the exact page and find the exact quote and where it comes from. I don't think that's necessarily a criticism. It just depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for, I'd really like to have known, where that quote was pulled from, the list of the bibliographies in the back, but you're not going to get page number. And that's just a style of what the writing is. And I think most people who are getting an introduction, who are in the church, probably don't care. But if you're more, whether it's academic audience or you're more interested in, this is a theological work within the larger conversation around the Heidelberg Catechism, you're not going to be able to find that as quickly, because that's just not what the book is intending to do. So this is, I would recommend this book if you're interested in the Heidelberg Catechism. Why Are You Called a Christian? By Margit Ernst-Habib. I appreciated the book. I appreciated the way that it approached the Catechism. It also helps. It's titled after one of my favorite questions in the Catechism. But if you're looking for an introductory guide that's not too long and that will give you some significant meat, but is not going to overwhelm you, this would definitely be a book worth picking up. So thank you for your time today. I will have links to this book in the description if you want to pick it up. But God bless and see you next time.